Do you know what happens to your digital assets when you're no longer around? With our lives increasingly online, it's crucial to plan for your digital legacy. So stick around to learn how to protect your digital assets in your estate plan. Hi, I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the estate planning guys. So today we're diving into the essential topic of estate planning for your digital assets. So what are digital assets? Well, first, let's define what digital assets are. So those are any electronic records that you own or control. So this includes things like your social media accounts, your online banking information, things like digital photos you might have in your iPhotos library, or email accounts, cryptocurrency, even things like domain names that you might own or websites that you have set up. All of those things are considered digital assets. And I mean, even including things like music in your iTunes library. Well, they don't call it iTunes anymore, but music in your Apple Music library or your Prime Music or wherever you listen to music. But that would be music that you own. So files that you've downloaded, or maybe you ripped them off of CDs if you're as old as me and you had CDs. But all of those things are digital assets, and digital assets are becoming an integral part of our lives. So think about all the important information and memories that you have stored on your devices, like your phone or in your online accounts. Well, these need to be considered in your estate plan, just like your financial assets or your personal property that you're going to want to leave to someone that you know. So why include digital assets in your estate plan? So you might be wondering, why is it so important that I include digital assets in my estate plan? I mean, can't somebody just, hop in and take over things? Well, the reality is that without proper planning, your loved ones might face significant challenges in accessing those assets. So for example, there could be financial implications. If no one has access to your online banking or investment accounts, and the bank's not going to be able to give it to them, those funds might become inaccessible. Or on a personal level, your family might lose access to like your Facebook account, for example. And there are ways that you can set up someone to take over your Facebook account. So that's an example of like planning for those digital assets. So you can name a person in your Facebook personal settings to take over and manage that Facebook account after you pass away. On a personal level, your family could lose access to sentimental items like digital photos. If you're anything like me, I've got thousands and thousands of photos of my family that are now all digital. My mom some years ago brought me the photo albums that she had kept from when I was a kid, but we don't have anything like that anymore. And all the pictures of my kids, other than the ones that we've printed and have on the walls, are in some digital format. So I want to make sure those are taken care of if something happens to me. And then personal emails. So you have a personal email account, and the terms of service on an email account more than likely say that nobody can access that except for you, and probably don't have a great way to deal with that, when you pass away. So all of those things, it's important to have a plan in place because they're important. They have sentimental value. The photos, for example, or things you've written. So, I take a lot of notes in something like Google Docs or other digital formats, and my family will have no access to those unless I set up a way for them to access them after I pass away. And then there's also the risk of identity theft. If your digital assets aren't properly managed, then somebody could take over your accounts, and they could do things like take out credit cards in your name and things like that. So it's really important to plan ahead to protect your legacy, make sure that your wishes with respect to your digital assets are followed, and that your family's not kind of left out in the cold. So what are some steps to take in planning for your digital assets? Well, the first thing is you need to create a digital asset inventory. And you can do that. Maybe you create a spreadsheet, and then you might want to print out the spreadsheet so that your family will have access to that. But that can include everything from your social media profiles to online banking, investment accounts, and be sure to include any digital files that are stored on your computer. So like, where are the photos? If you don't tell your family how to access those, they might never be able to find them. If you have any cloud accounts where you have things stored like in Dropbox or Google Drive, you're going to need to give them the information about how to access that as well. And then cryptocurrency is a whole other topic for another day. But if you own cryptocurrency, You need to make sure that somebody who's responsible for wrapping up things for you after you die, that they know how to access that cryptocurrency. You may have a digital wallet that can be a little bit tricky. You want to make sure that all those things are listed out so that we have a good list when you pass away of here are the digital assets that you had, so that your executor, your trustee can manage those things. The next thing is you want to appoint a digital executor. So this is somebody that you trust to handle all your digital assets after you pass away. You're going to want to make sure that they're tech savvy. That doesn't mean they need to be a programmer, but they're tech savvy and they understand the importance of your digital assets. So if you're interested in learning more about how we help families protect their legacies from probate, predators, and government intrusions, I wrote a free book titled The Ultimate Gift that lays it all out. If you'd like to pick up your free copy of The Ultimate Gift, simply click the link below, give us your address and a credit card for shipping and handling fees, and we'll ship it out to you free of charge. Read The Ultimate Gift so you can learn how to protect your family. And then your digital executor is going to need clear instructions on how to access and manage your digital assets, and make sure to include that in your estate planning documents. So access and passwords are super important as well. That's one of the most critical aspects, is access. So you need to ensure that your digital executor can access your accounts. And what I recommend is to use a password manager to securely store your passwords. And most password managers now can make up random passwords for you, so you don't have to remember those, but they're going to be strong passwords that are difficult to break. So that's a great way to store all those passwords and to make sure that you have strong passwords. You obviously want to avoid writing down passwords in an unsecured location. You could store it in an encrypted digital vault. So maybe you can create a encrypted drive that you share with your spouse or other loved one, and you keep encrypted things there. You could print the passwords out and put them in a safe deposit box or into a safe that you keep at your house. So you might have a fireproof safe you keep at the house, and you might have the passwords there, but your executor is going to need to be able to access those accounts when you pass away. So make sure that you've provided a way to access those. So like if you use 1Password, for example, you would need to give your executor only the one password needed to access 1Password, and then they could access all the other passwords from there. So that's why that's a really handy way to organize those. So there are also some legal considerations. You want to update your will to include provisions for your digital assets. That's if you have specific things that you want to happen with them. If you're happy for those to just be distributed out by the executor pursuant to the way that you've handled the rest of your assets, that's just fine. But if you have anything specific you want to happen, like for example, maybe you have one family member that you want to get your Apple Music account, that might be something that you would want to specify in the will. Now, you could also consider creating a digital asset trust. And this is a great way to handle these digital assets because it can provide even more detailed instruction and control over the digital assets. And because the trustee doesn't have to go through a probate process to be appointed, they would have immediate access to those digital accounts. So that can be a really great way to handle planning around digital assets. Now, there are several tools and resources available to help manage your digital assets. I've already mentioned password managers like 1Password. You can also use a digital vault. Like Google has something called the Inactive Account Manager that you can set to manage access to your digital assets through Google. There's a company called DCS, Directive Communication Systems, that assists with managing digital assets in an estate planning context as well. So that's something else that's available. And you might just do a search and see what else is out there. I know that there's something called Legacy Locker as well, but I'm not sure of all the different products that might be available to help. For legal documents, you want to consult with your estate planning attorney and make sure that your will and any trusts are updated to include your digital assets if they're not in there already. And then you can also store your estate planning documents digitally and give your family access to those. In my office, we use something called DocuBank, and they have a service called Safe, SAFE, where you can store digital copies of your estate planning documents, and you can give a login and password to family members so that they can access them after you pass away. So that's another great way that you can store information about your digital assets as well as your estate planning documents in a digital format. So common pitfalls to avoid. I always like, when we talk about things, I always like to also point out any pitfalls for you. One common pitfall is just not keeping your digital inventory up to date. If you're like me, you probably open new digital accounts all the time and you forget about them. But you want to regularly review the list and update that with anything that's important. If you don't really care about anybody having access to it after you're gone, then don't worry about it. But if there are things that you want to make sure are protected and that people have access to after you've passed away, then you want to make sure that the list is always complete and that you haven't overlooked anything. Another mistake is not informing your digital executor about their role. And this is something that's really important in estate planning in general, is the people that you've selected to serve in different roles in your estate plan should be educated about what's expected. So you tell them about what your wishes are for them and how they execute that role. And they need to know also where are the documents that give me my instructions. So you want to have a conversation with your digital executor and ensure that they understand their responsibilities and they have the necessary information. And then last one, don't assume that your loved ones will automatically have access to your accounts. Without proper planning, they might face legal and technological barriers to getting into those accounts. So proper documentation and clear instructions are key to making sure that your digital assets are handled smoothly when you pass away. Now, if you found this information helpful, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more estate planning tips. And if you're ready to take the next step in protecting your digital assets, then click the link below to schedule a consultation with us at Smith Barid, and we'll get that all taken care of for you. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in more estate planning tips, check out our next video right here. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update about important estate planning topics.